Hello, welcome to this session. I'm not exactly sure if someone's introducing me or not, but I think I'm just going to get started. And I appreciate that you all came out to this. As somewhat of a conference junkie myself, I know that it's always exciting looking through the sessions and trying to decide. And you hope when you sit down that you're not going to go 2 minutes into it, dang it, I should have chose that other one that looked really good. So, you know, if you're like, that wasn't actually at all what I was looking for, I won't feel bad if you leave, as long as you don't, you know, give me the side eye when you're doing so. I thought I would tell you a couple things about myself and why I love collaboration. And I wanted to hear a little bit from you as we get started too. I was thinking back on some of my earliest experiences with collaboration, and I remembered something when I was in high school and I went to one of those month-long summer music camps where for the first time you meet other nerdy music kids who like what you do and you're like, oh my gosh, these are my people. As a pianist, I was playing, accompanying some of my instrumentalist friends, and I remember being on stage with one of them, I think maybe a clarinetist or an oboist, and she was playing, and I all of a sudden had this sense that if I paid attention and listened really closely, I could sense when she was going to breathe. I just knew when she was going to stop the note. And it was this amazing feeling that I'd never had before. It was like this kind of, we were an organism together, right? And I think that's one thing that I really love about collaboration, about how you become something together with, whether it's one other person or a group of people, and you create something that you kind of weren't expecting sometimes. It can be really magical like that. So I did the usual kinds of music school things. I accompanied for choirs and singers, and when I got out of school, playing chamber music with people was one of the ways that I found other friends and musicians to connect with and had musical experiences that weren't just for my job, that were something fun that I wanted to do. And as I had a series of church jobs, I found that collaborating with musicians in a lot of different ways was a way to kind of make connections with other musicians, make connections with the music in interesting kinds of ways. So those are some of my history with collaboration. Where's page 2? Oh, here we are. So I figured some of you must be here because you really like to collaborate. So if this is true, could you yell out one thing that you like about collaboration?
You'll learn.
Less pressure.
Okay, I can't even hear you guys. You gotta have to be louder. A little.
Talents. Blending talents.
Blending talents, okay, thank you.
Music that breathes.
Music that breathes, okay, good.
Less pressure.
Less
Pressure.
pressure, okay, good. Enjoyable, yeah, I like that. Fun, I totally put that was the first one I put on my list. It's fun. Anybody else? Dynamic, yeah. I wrote down it keeps things interesting, right? There are a lot of possibilities. As I just said, the whole is almost always greater than the sum of the parts. And it's really just not as lonely, right? When you got some other people up there. Okay, so there maybe are some of you here that came because you find collaboration challenging. Or maybe even if you're one of those people that love collaborations, you find it challenging. So let's hear some things that are challenging. Finding time for practice, yeah, absolutely. Personalities, oh my gosh, musicians? No. Oh, people who aren't that good. Okay, wow, you guys are naming it. Yeah, so I wrote down finding the right people, right? You can find people, but you want to find the right people and the time, right? It's a lot faster to whip it up yourself than it is to get together with people. Every time, it's faster. And then I wrote down that we're losing control, right? As soon as you invite somebody else in there, whoa, you just lost a little bit of control. You introduced some unknowns, and that might be amazing, or it might be terrible, or it might be some kind of combination of what you didn't expect, but something that turned out, right? Like so all these things. There's challenges for sure. All right, page 3. All right, I want to introduce my collaborators up here, and they're going to be involved in my Vespers at 4, but I want each of you to come up here and just say briefly some of the musical kinds of collaborations you do. These are people that I chose for a couple of different reasons, but one reason is that they're wonderful collaborators.
My name's John Varineau. I'm a clarinetist. I was trained as a clarinetist. all the way through college and graduate school and beyond. And then I became a conductor, and I spent 36 years as the associate conductor of the Grand Rapids Symphony, and 33 years as the conductor of the Grand Rapids Youth Symphony, in addition to teaching at various schools and universities in the Western Michigan area. I was a full-time faculty here at Calvin for a while. So I've done the typical musician thing, which is doing a lot of things, and some of it not very well, but doing a lot of things, and just filling up days with a patchwork quilt of existence. Do you want me to talk about my collaborative stuff?
That's good for now.
That's good for now, all right. Just tell me when to stop talking.
And I'm just going to say that he is amazing at everything he does. I've seen John Varineau work, and he's a master at bringing people together of all ages, so kudos to John. My name is Leah Ivory, and I teach world music here at Calvin University. I'm a Calvin alum, went here for my training in piano. I was a piano major. I am now the artistic director for the Grand Rapids Youth Chorus, so I conduct kids. I do music in my church. And I'm a djembe player. I went to Ghana in 2006 with my choir. Quick story, this won't take long. When I was growing up, I was always a tabletop drummer, and my parents, and I got to that certain age, I don't know, middle school, where I hated piano so much. I hated it so much. Like, it made me angry, right? And my parents were like, you're taking your piano lessons, you're gonna practice. And I was naughty. Like, I remember like slamming my hands on the keyboard and not doing, like, it was bad. And my brother got to play drums. Yeah, that wasn't fair because, like, I wanted to play drums, and I'm like, why does he get to quit piano and play drums, and, like, why do I have to play the piano? And they were like, it'll give you a lot of opportunities, like, keep doing it, and they wanted to do that. And so, no joke, I hated it so much. I'm a little bit embarrassed to say this, but I hated it so much. And my dad said, you don't get to make this choice, so when you leave this house, you can make that choice, but as long as you're living in this house, you're going to take piano lessons. And so that was it. And so I prayed to God, literally, I'm not joking, that I wouldn't hate it, because I knew I was in it for the next several years. And you know what, magically, or not magically, I started to really love piano. So I was a piano major here at Calvin, used piano in a lot of collaborations, and you start talking about collaborations, I just got really happy because it's my happy place. Having that connection with other humans, it is magical. Right, so I love that, which brought me to Ghana with my choir, and that's when I was introduced to djembe, and that kind of opened up my world. Everything about West African rhythms is about interlocking patterns, so that whole collaboration idea is happening on steroids in that capacity. So I love that. So thanks to my parents for encouraging me to keep playing the piano. Became a piano major at Calvin. Conducted choirs, accompanied choirs, conducted for choirs, went to Ghana, got a drum, and my world is collaboration all over the place. All right.
Fun. Okay, I was looking over at that blurb that I wrote, and I said we were going to collaborate in real time, and I was like, I don't know exactly what I thought. But it sounded good for the blurb. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do a couple Tizé pieces, and if you pull out underneath your chairs or behind your chairs, however you have to find it, if you pull out the red hymnal and turn to page 836, I'm betting you all know this. Oh, 836. Which one did I put? So this is Bless the Lord, My Soul, right? You probably cannot be at the Calvin Worship Symposium if you don't know Tizé songs, right? This is kind of an impossible thing. And what I was picturing is, I call on a couple of my regular people. They come in Sunday morning, and I'm like, hey, we're singing this in the service this morning. And because I know these folks, and I work with them, and I know they're good, I can be like, hey, what would work with this? Hey, Leah, I got a box of percussion stuff here. What do you think would work with this one?
I don't know. I want to try something?
Yeah, why don't you just try something? And John, to John I've given, you all must have this, right? The instrumental part, right? And what's always interesting is sometimes the parts there aren't the instruments that you have, or you look at it and you're like, I'm not quite sure if that's going to work. So John, which part do you think you want to play? Which is going to work here?
Well, how many times are we going to do this?
Oh, well, I kind of thought that we would start with like a few times through with an instrumental, and then we'd have the singers come in, and you could play like behind them while they're singing. What do you think?
Well, you've given me a page here that's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different melodic lines. So I'm having to play all 6. And we'll just kind of go that way, right? Okay,
you're just going to kind of try some things out?
Yeah.
Okay, super. Leah, what are you going to do? What works over here?
Start off, how many times are we going to sing it, did you say?
We're going to do like 2 instrumental times through, and then we're going to have them come in and sing it and do it 2 more times. So 4 times total.
I'm going to start light percussion and add more percussion as we go.
Okay, sounds fun. All right, so then I am going to start on the swell with some flutes 8 and 4 and a soft-ish 16 in the pedal. I'm going to couple my manuals and get a little bit louder sound for when you all come in. Okay, so the playing was 2 times instrumental and then 2 times with the singers.
You're going to play the melody the first time?
Oh, yeah, okay, I'll do that.
All right. Okay. These things are, all of this takes place 15 minutes before the service.
Can we sing parts?
Oh, yeah, you should sing parts for sure. So I'll do an intro.
Yeah. I'm going to come in the second time.
Oh, okay.
So, what key are you in?
Oh, I'm in F.
A very amateur thing just happened. And I need to take just a minute to explain this.
Here, the mic for you.
I play clarinet, and I'm holding up 2 clarinets. Do you see the difference? One is longer than the other. I put my mouthpiece on the wrong clarinet, and that put me into the wrong key. So this is a B-flat clarinet, this is an A clarinet. And we'll talk about that in a couple of minutes because it's important. But we're going to try this again with the right clarinet.
It's all real world here, people.
This, by the way, happened while I was conducting the Grand Rapids Symphony, and the clarinetist picked up the wrong clarinet in a concert, and it was in the wrong key, and it sounded awful.
It's the real world.
And the worst part of it is, they didn't realize it. Just joking. Once again, sorry, Rhonda.
Okay. I'll just do the end. Okay, see, that didn't go the way I expected it to go, but that's all par for the course, and it was fun, right? It was fun, yeah. Okay. Oh, I think that's good with the today for now. So I wrote down here, if you have pros up here, you can ask for their input, right? They know what they're doing. They might have better ideas than you do. Like I was just going to tell John to read the clarinet part. He wanted to read all kinds of parts. That's fun. And Leah switched up. She did different instruments. That was awesome. If you're working with amateurs or youth, most of the time they want us to tell them what to do, right? Like, and most of the time we're going to have pretty good ideas. I don't know that much about percussion, but I can say like, do this, right? So you always have to kind of base the direction you're giving on the folks you're working with. So I wanted to talk a little bit about, for the Vespers service that is coming after this. I was given the assignment, do a global music Vespers with the organ, here's a specific text, and go. So I was trying to figure out, okay, well, as John said, oh, so you use the most Western instrument of all with global music. So already it's a little weird, right? There's a lot of music that in the global context I wouldn't necessarily accompany on the organ, but I decided I'm going to make it work for this. Also, I kind of picked these folks because I knew they were around Calvin, they knew about the Vespers, they were available, I like working with them, but then I had to figure out what am I going to make work with organ and clarinet? You know, so I asked John, do you know any pieces for organ and clarinet that are global? And he didn't happen to. And so then we had to kind of start searching around. What we ended up doing is taking an organ piece, a solo organ piece, and arranging that. I think John probably started out with a composer. He said, has Fela Sawanda, Nigerian composer, written anything for organ and voice? And I texted some colleagues, didn't look like he had, and then John found a piece, probably YouTube, I don't know, how'd you find it?
YouTube.
Oh, yes, YouTube. He found a piece on YouTube, and he was like, hey, I think this could work. Like, if you play this opening fanfare on the organ, I can come here where the organ's soloing out a voice. We got together, we tried it out. I had some ideas, he had some ideas. We were like, I think this is gonna work. Then the day of the rehearsal, he's like, hey, let's ask Leah to play drums on it. And I was like, oh, okay, I wasn't expecting that, but it was cool, it's really fun. So, so we kind of made an organ piece work. You can do, there's a lot of organ pieces, right? You can, if there's, say, a solo voice like in this Sawanda piece, you give yourself less work. If the melody's in the pedal, maybe you can give that to the instrument. There's lots of times when you can arrange an organ piece, or you can take a hymn and make it into a little piece that you arrange for some instruments. This is especially good if you have some, say, youth or amateur instrumentalists in your congregation who aren't super advanced, right? You give them a hymn tune, this is not like too much for them to bite off. For the other piece that John and I are doing, it's actually, it was a Japanese composer that I have played works by. I really like her organ work. She's a lovely composer. And so I'm looking on the web, on her webpage, trying to find, it turns out she has a piece written based on the exact text of the Vespers. So I was like, perfect. It's for organ and violin. And I asked John, hey, can you play a violin part? And he said, oh, sure, as long as it doesn't go too high and there's no double stops. So I get the piece from her, and you know, the best movement, of course, has double stops, because that's how the world works. But then we looked through it, we tried it out. I was like, I think we can leave off the bottom note. I think the harmonies are enough there. So we found a section of this piece, and we made it work. I think it's really lovely. I think it'll be nice. I asked the composer. She was okay with it, too. So you can do some things like that. I also wanted to talk about it. How many folks here are organists yourselves? I mean, I don't want to raise our hands. Okay, so I'll just talk briefly about a couple of the hymns that we're doing at the Vespers, because they're not hymns, again, that I would have normally done on the organ. The first one, if you have seen the CICW hymnal Santo Santo, it's Te Exultate, has this kind of fun bass line, 1, 5, 1, 5, 1, 2, 2, right? Like this kind of like groovy little bass line, and I decided I was going to play that in the pedals, just because it kind of gives it a little more rhythmic feel. And John's playing the melody on that. I'm doing, one time through I'm soloing out the melody, the other time through I'm playing all of those right-hand chords kind of on the great, kind of like I'm all the trumpets of the mariachi band. So arranging that a couple different ways. Another one is, if you know, and it's in the red hymnal 939, if you have that on your on your chairs there, it's the benediction, may the love of the Lord. And that opens with this kind of interesting little like high kind of chords and this funny ostinato, do, 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 do. And I was like, okay, I always play this one on the piano, but I can make it work on the organ. And what I'm doing is those high chords, I'm playing them like down an octave on the 4 and 2 foot flutes. And then I can do the bass note in the pedal on something really, really kind of light. And the little ostinato I can play on some flutes. I can have John play the melody. Another time through, I'm having him play that little ostinato. On the clarinet, I'm playing the melody. I tried practicing it playing the ostinato in the pedal. Like, it's also possible because you've got all these limbs, right? So you can mess around with things, right? With the organs, we have all these sound possibilities. And sometimes, you know, even a thing that you thought like, oh, that's not going to work, if you start messing around with it, sometimes it does.
Hey, Rhonda?
Yes.
You want to do a little bit of the Fearless Wanda to show them what we did?
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, we'll do. So this is our postlude for the Vespers. This is by Fearless Wanda, a Nigerian composer. This is a piece John found on YouTube.
So we're going to start off, and Rhonda's just going to play the opening. And Rhonda, can you keep going? And I'm not going to join you and play for just about 30 seconds beyond the opening. This is the piece that Fearless Wanda wrote for organ. All right, so that's the piece that we had, and the question was, all right, how do I turn this into chamber music for clarinet and organ? That opening, that's the big organ thing, quite frankly, I don't think that would sound very good on clarinet. I'd be way up here like this. No. So we talked, and I said, Rhonda, you just do that by yourself. And then after that big opening, I felt that I could take the top line and have her just play the bottom line. So this is the Andante con moto. It sounds like this. So that sounded almost chamber music-ish. And then the next thing is the body of the piece is this African melody. And by itself, it sounds okay, but if I double the melody, it sounds like this. We'll start right at the Andante con moto. That's the melody. I've taken it away from the organ and I took over, and I haven't tuned yet, so that's obvious. So that melody has got kind of a swaying feel to it, and it's very, very African. So here's Leah with her djembe, and I said, Leah, this is a 6/8 melody, and she says, oh, perfect, because a lot of African drumming has a triplet subdivision underneath it. Most of it. So I asked Leah, do something, which she's totally comfortable doing, and I'm not. So we're going to start at that same spot. And here she goes. Here we go. So there we go. That's our trio that was made out of an organ piece. By the way, it goes on, gets bigger, and then it ends the same way it begins with that big organ thing. We let Rhonda do that again without us. So that's how we turned a solo organ piece into a little chamber work in not very much time. Here's the mic back.
All right. So how do we find our collaborators? Tell me, do y'all have ideas how you found some of your collaborators? You have to be loud.
Well, they go to my church.
They go to our church, yes, yes. So many of them go to our church. I think I have other ideas?
It's also just who's available on a
Who's available on a Sunday, yes. So, oh, they're busking on the street. Yeah, maybe you bump into them in your town. There are so many ways to find people. Word of mouth, you talk to a friend, you ask a colleague. I have found that young professional musicians, so the people that just got out of grad school and they're adjuncting, they're gigging, and maybe they're new to town, they love to play. And they're bummed that they're not in school anymore, surrounded by all those musicians. And maybe it's kind of a grind, right? Like maybe they just want to get together and play some music for fun. If you have a local college, that's a great place. Maybe there's a professor there that would like to play. Maybe they have some students that would like to play. Passing comments, you should never ignore a passing comment. You know, like, my so-and-so used to play the right? Like, okay, might be a dead end, but why not ask that person? If it's, you know, or, hey, the person behind me in the pew has a great voice. Get creative, right? In our worshiping communities, I think a couple of areas that are overlooked sometimes are amateurs and older musicians, right? Like, of course, we all love working with young people and nurturing young people. I think oftentimes there are people, maybe they're empty nesters, maybe they just got divorced and they have some more time, maybe they just retired or they used to play, and they're looking for some new avenues to play. Sometimes it's really fun to encourage some folks that would like to have a chance and have a kind of a not very pressure-filled situation to get back into music making. I want to have both Leah and John talk about working with youth and some of the unique challenges and things to keep an eye out for when we're collaborating with youth musicians. John.
So working with younger musicians involves a couple of different things. One is it takes more time. Older, more mature musicians are able to process what's going on in music more quickly and remember it from one time to the next. Kids are not very good at that. So if you're going to, I'm a big believer involving younger players in worship services and in the music of the church. I think that's what will keep them involved and keep them going. But it simply takes more time, and it takes more rehearsal time than what I think a lot of us have the time for. One time through is not enough with kids. 2 times through is not enough with kids. Sometimes 3 times through is not enough. And here's something else that I have dealt with all of the years that I was dealing with younger musicians. They do not understand the concept of using a pencil, period. But the thought of marking music is just like totally foreign to them. And I keep saying to the students that I have, mark your music. If you go to a professional orchestra rehearsal and you go to their first rehearsal, you'll be hearing them slamming pencils down on their stands all the time, because the minute they make a mistake or the minute they need to understand about what's going on in the music, they are marking their music because they don't have the luxury of making a mistake the second time through. This harangue of mine has not taken root. So it's just something where if you work with younger players, you really kind of have to insist, mark your music. The other thing that is difficult with some younger musicians, it all depends on how young we're going, but you've got to make sure that the key of the music that you are selecting is appropriate for the age level. And this is especially important if you have kids accompanying hymns. If you do something in D major, that puts a clarinet player into E major, which is 4 sharps, which is a recipe for many more rehearsals and many more pencil markings. So I just want to say this, that if you've got trumpet players, clarinet players, saxophone players, anybody that plays an instrument that has the term flat in their name, anytime you've got that, if you do a piece in sharps, you're multiplying the number of sharps they're playing, sometimes by 2. All right, if you've got an E-flat alto saxophone player, a middle schooler or a high schooler, and you do something in A major, that throws them into 6 sharps, and it's not going to be pretty. But on the other hand, the young musicians in my church that we have involved in collaborative music, they're eager to do so, and the congregation also appreciates it. So, if you're going to work with young musicians, they're going to need more direction. They're not going to have the ability to just wing it. They're going to need more explicit direction as to what's going on. So, Rhonda, you can't say to a young musician, I want you to play on the third. I want you to play the prelude, the first verse, the third verse, and take the fourth verse up an octave. That's not going to quite work. It's got to be a little bit more specific about that. More time, more explicit direction, and careful attention to what is possible for them in the limited amount of time that you've got. Leah?
Yeah, I'm going to back you up on all those things. All those things are true, and they apply to choir as well. The only thing I'll add is some ways that our church incorporates the youth is the instrumental ensemble for the hymn singing. Our music director will collect, all of the students and have them practice or play for an offertory or play for prelude that way. How do we find our collaborators was a question that was thrown out. You ask them. Like, I end up forming my own groups. I'll ask a group of students, and we'll practice, on a couple of weeknights if we want to put a little drum ensemble together. Or I've had a couple of adults say to me, I play djembe regularly at my church, and quite often people will say to me, oh, I just love it when you play the djembe. It gets so much life to the music. Like, it does, which I love. And they'll say, like, oh, but I wish that I could be, but I have no rhythm. I'm like, yo, everybody has rhythm, okay? Everybody does. And so, well, how can I learn that? Well, you can come to my Tuesday night class. Or what I just did was I reached out to our congregational life committee, and I said, hey, I've had like 3 people in the last couple of months ask me about, like, they love djembe and they want to play. So can I offer a Wednesday night drum community for, all of our adults? And I specified adults, and what I specified was anyone able to have an attention span for like an hour and a half. So, some 10-year-olds could do that. I said adults or those who could hold an attention span, because right away they said to me, we've got to get an age limit, otherwise everyone's going to come with their little children. Because another thing that they do at my church, which is wonderful, is always assume that the little kids can do the drumming with me. Now, I love drumming with little kids. I do. It's great. But also, one time I said, hey, I'd like to put together a drum ensemble of older people, and I handpicked them. It was like 2 students that did percussion. It was 1 or 2 adults that were percussionists. We practiced, and we laid down a traditional West African rhythm, and, it was amazing. There are places for both opportunities, right? Because we are a community that has littles and olders and everything in between. And so church needs to be ideally a welcoming place for all ages. And I love incorporating all of the ages, from the littles all the way to the adults. But we can create our own communities, and we have to be intentional about that, because people need us to ask them to do things. Yeah?
Yeah, and I think that reminds me that I think all these kinds of collaborative music making can be really fun as long as we come in with the right mindset or the right perspective, right? When we have invited maybe a middle schooler that plays the clarinet to play along with our choir, we just know that it's going to be a different experience than if we invited someone who has decades of experience, who has music degrees, who has gigged all over the place, right? Like, this is a different experience for us and for them, and we're going to come in with a different perspective. And I think that switch of perspective for us helps us to be able to make it an experience that people enjoy. One of my big goals when I'm inviting musicians to play in church is I want everybody to feel really comfortable, to enjoy the experience. And for youth, I know that means they're going to need to rehearse it more. For maybe amateurs, they're going to need to have a little more time on the piece too, right? Like, I don't want them to leave with the experience of like, oh my gosh, I didn't know if we were going to make it to the end together, right? Like, that's no fun. Nobody wants that kind of experience. I want them to feel comfortable. And maybe that means, okay, this kind of piece, I'm not going to reach out to this person. I'm going to save it for when I have a little bit of budget to invite in someone. I want people to feel prepared, and I want them to have fun. I want them to feel comfortable, and I want it to be something that enhances what's happening, right? We don't want to just throw up an instrument there just because it seemed like maybe it could be a good idea, but that it makes sense in the context of what's happening in the service, in the context of the piece. I think collaborating can be also fun, not just with musicians, but maybe there's other choirs in your community. I think we're in an age of small church choirs now, right? Like, except for some very special places, a lot of us who are directing choirs have the 10 to 15, 15 to 20, if you're on a good day, kind of size church choirs. So if you got 3 community choirs together, all of a sudden that's a lot of voices in a space, and a lot of people who haven't sung in a group that size, maybe for a long time. So that's, again, something that's going to take you more time. It's going to take a lot of work. And maybe you do something like that and you have a lot of fun. You don't have to do it every year, but we did a hymn festival at my church last fall celebrating that CICW Santo Santo hymnal. We had special musicians. We had a guest speaker, and it was an amazing experience that we all enjoyed, and I'm definitely not going to do it again for another couple years, because it took a lot of work, right? That kind of stuff takes a lot of work. And I think we can give ourselves permission to pace ourselves with things like that, right? I really enjoy inviting my congregation members. Somebody mentioned that her husband played the drums, and then I asked him to do something, and then it turns out, oh, he likes to play djembe, and he likes to play drum set, and he can do this and that, and he was great when I had him in, so now he's definitely like on my A-list for percussionists. There's a high school percussionist in my church that if I ask him for a thing, I know that I'm going to try to meet with him a couple times. We're going to have a couple little informal rehearsals. Maybe he can pop in on a Sunday morning and practice it with the choir, right? Like, every assignment takes a little bit different judgment call on our part for how it's going to work. I think sometimes there are also organizations in our communities that we can collaborate with, like if you know of an arts organization or a mission organization that is aligned with some kinds of music that you want to do, reaching out to groups like that can be a fun kind of collaboration too. Let's see. Oh, I wanted to talk about instruments, because, I have this random box of instruments here, and these are all things that I dug up at my church. And I think most people, when you arrive at a church job, there's like a closet of random instruments, right? I have all these Orff instruments, and I'm not an Orff person, and I always feel guilty when I think of them. I'm like, I don't really even know what to do with all these random things. But you show up and there's instruments, right? And these can be fun things, fun ways to incorporate. I like to hand out hand percussion to some of my choir members sometimes if we're doing even just a congregational piece. And again, you have to choose the right person, right? Because there are some people that are like, do not come near me with those maracas. And some people, it's not the most amazing thing, but they can keep the beat, right? They can get it going. And so it's fun kind of handing out things, saying, you know, sometimes I'll mark it in their score, like right here, on beat 2, in this measure, right? Or sometimes it's just something a little bit more flexible. So you can find instruments, right, sitting around your church. You can borrow instruments from your colleague's church. Maybe you know you have a colleague that has a really nice djembe that will let you borrow that for a special service. At my house, you know, we have kids, they're a little bit bigger now. I was just thinking, like, we've got a rain stick, we've got random drums and maracas and shakers and bells. You might have some folks in your congregation that have some instruments sitting around that you could borrow or that would let you have them. I once borrowed a piano for a couple years when I was living in a different country and I wanted a piano to play. I just put up a sign at church and I said, do you have a piano that maybe you're not playing that you would lend me for a few years? There might be somebody in your congregation that has similarly some instruments sitting around that you might be able to borrow. I even thought, I bet you could get someone in your congregation to sponsor, you know, buying a really nice drum or a really nice tambourine. And then you would absolutely want to say, hey, we are going to play your tambourine coming up on this Sunday. Wouldn't that be fun? So I think there's sometimes some creative ways to think about ways we can get these instruments in our spaces and get people playing them. Okay, Leah and John, I'm going to call them each up once more because I think they both have a couple more little topics they want to mention, and then get your questions going if you have questions for us.
Listening to Rhonda, I think that one of the roles of a music minister within the church setting these days is a role of being a music educator. All of a sudden, you're having to do a lot more teaching than you had expected to be doing. And also, you need to be a lot more flexible with the people in your congregation that are willing to collaborate with you on music. Sometimes you're going to have some music that is for one instrument, and it needs to be played by another instrument. In the next 120 seconds, I'm going to talk to you about the mystery of why instruments are in different keys and why you need to write that music in a different key for those instruments. You ready? 2 minutes. Back when this thing was invented, it didn't have any keys. All it could play was a diatonic scale. So when the music was in C major, the clarinetist would pick up their C clarinet and they could play the C diatonic scale. But when the music was in B flat major, they couldn't play those notes on the C clarinet. They would pick up a B flat clarinet and they would have the diatonic scale. This meant that the clarinetist only had to learn one fingering system to play in all keys, but they needed like 8 different clarinets. All right? Then they invented keys, and this gave us the opportunity to play chromatic notes, but the concept of different keyed instruments never went away. As a matter of fact, the B-flat clarinet kind of stuck around. But there's still a C clarinet, a D clarinet, an E-flat clarinet, an A clarinet, a G clarinet. They're still out there. Same with trumpets, same with horns. They had different trumpets for all the different keys. Now, what are you going to do when you've got a flute part and you've got a clarinet player? How are we going to deal with that? Hint. All instruments, except for a few, are lower than a regular instrument. So a B-flat clarinet is lower than a flute. A B-flat trumpet is lower than a flute. An E-flat saxophone is lower than a flute. An F horn is lower than a flute. Got it? They're all lower, unless they have the word piccolo in front of it. And then they're higher. Leah, could you step up here for a minute?
Yes.
Leah here is a C instrument. I'm a B-flat instrument. I'm lower. How much lower am I? One step. That means that I need to write the music a step higher so that we can see eye to eye. Hang on. I'm an E-flat alto saxophone. Am I higher or lower? Lower. Lower. How much lower am I? I am a major 6 lower. That's a lot. That's a long way. That means I have to write that music up a major sixth. I'm a B flat clarinet player. I'm lower by how much?
1 step.
Which way does the key signature go? Up by how much?
1 step.
Step. So if I'm in E major, if Leah's in E major, what is the clarinet player? F sharp major. A whole step. And F sharp, it's got to be a whole step. And I don't even want to think about what that for saxophone is. we have to add 3 sharps. Does that make sense to you? Yep. Back in college, we had a course called instrumentation, where we had to do this, and this is back before computers. Guaranteed, when we had the big orchestra project, guaranteed there was a student who always transposed the thing the wrong way. All right? You're going to be transposing everything, basically everything, up by the difference of the name, the C, and the name of the instrument. Does that make sense? Now, if you've got a computer, if you've got a notation program, bless you, the last 3 minutes were a waste of your time. But if you have to write things out by hand, that's the trick. All right? Thank you. Thank you for letting me harangue you on that. Leah, you have something to say.
I'm just going to come over here. You guys want to like stand up a little bit? I bet you do. Okay, so I'm just going to say something really, really quick, but you can sit and then I'll invite you to stand. So we use a lot of djembe in my church because I'm a djembe player. I went to Africa. I fell in love with this instrument. It's amazing. I met some amazing teachers. I studied with Mamadi Keita for like over 10 years. It's the thing that I love. I love that lots of churches use djembe in their worship. I think that we should definitely do that. I think the best thing, and I've had people ask me, well, how do we use djembe in our worship? I think the number one thing, if you have percussionists in your church and you want to use djembe, I say do it, but have your percussionists take some djembe lessons, right? Because like any instrument, like all instruments, the best way to honor it is to learn about the culture and to learn the technique. We're not going to have people come up and play the clarinet in worship if they've never taken a clarinet lesson. Like, we get that. Also violin, we get that. But drumming is the same. This is a really beautiful tradition. Rhythmic language from West Africa. This djembe comes from West Africa. All djembes come from West Africa. It's true to say that djembes come from Africa. I'm giving you my little speech now, but djembes come from Africa in the same way that Petoskey stones come from North America. Michigan people, do you get my reference? Petoskey stones are unique to Lake Michigan. And if I say, I have this really cool Petoskey stone and it came from North America, I'm telling the truth. But it's not very descriptive of the Petoskey stone. It's the same with djembes. They come from a specific region in West Africa, and it's a beautiful culture that's been going on for centuries. Rhythm is a language. Everybody say rhythm is a language. It has a unique dialect, just like all the languages have a unique dialect. Like, I can learn Spanish here in America, but my dialect will not be like a Spanish person who lives, in Spain, for example, unless I go there and study the language. So the best thing that you can do for your percussionists in your church is to have them take lessons in the instrument of, like, same with conga, So I'm gonna play with you a little bit of djembe. And another thing that I think churches think that they need to do that they don't need to do is you don't just put your djembes with just your African songs. Right? Do that. It's great. But also, djembe can accompany anything that has, a rhythmic, something that you want to put rhythm to, or even something that you wouldn't necessarily think you would put rhythm to, like Jesus Loves Me. We do Jesus Loves Me, add a little African, and now you're singing Jesus Loves Me, but you feel like you're in Africa because it really gives you a nice groove. So let's do that with Amazing Grace. Do we all know Amazing Grace? If you don't, I don't know what number it is, you could look up in the hymnal. I think let's do verses 1 and 4, or 5, whatever the last one is, when we've been there 10,000 years. We'll do 1 and the last one. And I'm going to ask you to move with me and do a clap. And if you say you don't have any rhythm, okay, that's cool. You can stand there and catch it from us. But I want us to feel something that's maybe not typical, right, of a Western rhythm. So I'm going to have you feel it in ding, 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 ding. So like almost in 6/8. So 1, dee, dee. So how slower, the Amazing Grace. So what's typical of West African rhythm is you're not going to be hitting something necessarily on a pulse, but on an offbeat. So doom, ga, amazing. So you just sing it the regular way you want to sing it. So let's stand up. I'll get you started. I'm gonna grab my little thing. Grab a chair. Thank you. not going to sing with the microphone, so people online, sorry about that. Okay, now I'm going to keep a rhythm. Ding, and you can step or clap with me, walk or step, and clap if you want to. And one and a two, and one and a two, and ready, sing. Amazing grace. We've been there. Right, yeah. So we can put a nice rhythm that might not be a typical Western rhythm into this beautiful instrument. And if you have the amazing opportunity to happen to have a missionary come by, which has happened to me before, and be like, oh, you're playing my language, right? That is our goal as brothers and sisters in Christ, is to see each other and our shared humanity and to start speaking each other's language. And there are many languages, and there's no one right one. There are just a lot of beautiful ones. And so it is my hope and prayer and my goal to share the love of and the language of djembe from my teacher, Mamadi Keita. So thank you for that moment.
All right, you all can sit down. Does anybody have any questions? Okay. For Leah?
I heard you laying down the roof. Are there any certain conventions that you learned for fills then that are particularly West African?
Yeah, so my fills are going to have a little bit of a West African dialect to them because it's the language that I learned. And that to say is I encourage all the percussionists who want to do, or anybody who wants to play specifically djembe in their church, is the best way to honor the instrument is to learn the dialect or the language of the instrument. So I can learn basic traditional rhythms, and then I can put them onto pieces and collaborate with pieces where they're going to work in that way. So, one da dang ga dang ga is a real, very common backdrop, so it works really well in this case.
Okay, any other questions? Yes?
Yep, Mamadi Keita. May he rest in peace. He passed on the summer solstice, 2021. I had the amazing opportunity to study with him for over 10 years.
All right, any other questions? Yes?
We don't have enough musicians yet at our church, so we were thinking about looking elsewhere, and we found some people that were not Christian, and there are some people on my staff that think we shouldn't invite them because it means that they're leading the congregation. But then there's some people who say that's a chance for them to become or to see us being the light of the world. I was just wondering if anyone else had an opinion because I'm really struggling.
Yeah, that's super interesting, and I think that's going to be a theological difference that people are going to have, right? And I had someone come up to me just recently. He went to Hope College, I think, grew up in the area, and he was like, I'm Buddhist now, though, and I'm not sure, would that be okay if I played in your service? And I said, that would be fine. I mean, my congregation, everybody would love it if you were there. And for us, it wouldn't have felt like that he was somehow, because he was part of the service, making something different. But that's certainly an opinion, a perspective that I think that is definitely out there. And when you have to struggle with that within your staff, I think that's the challenge there, right? From my perspective, nothing has changed about the service because there's some folks that are taking part in it that have that aren't Christians, right? Like, it's not like somehow all of a sudden we're worshiping a different God because we invited these folks in. We still know what we're doing there. The folks who are gathered, right, we're still having a worship service. We've just invited them to be a part of that. And hopefully they're going to have an experience with Christians, right? An experience with worship that maybe means something to them, that maybe is different from what they've experienced in the past. But of course, like, as we all know as church musicians, right? Collaboration, there's a lot of collaborating we have to do with pastors and staff, and sometimes we don't always have the same opinion. It can be tough.
What would Jesus do?
What would Jesus do? Uh-oh, Jesus would be out there. He would be jamming, right? Okay, yes?
Well, so she said she wanted an opinion. I actually talked to my worship director about this, and he said this: as long as someone isn't singing, then that's probably the standard to go by. So, in terms of leading instruments, that's okay because at least the person up there isn't blind.
They're not getting into the mic and reading.
Singing, like if you have a Hindu up there singing, you know, the song, the Creed, I Believe, right? It's like they are leading God's people by means of a lie. It's probably not what should be happening. So it's kind of like a way to compromise and find a way to embrace cultural language without making that a paramount thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What about like click tracks? Is that something that you sometimes use and sometimes don't?
I'm not quite sure of your question. Oh, as far as collaborating with musicians? I don't tend to use click tracks, and it might depend on the style of music that you're using. I don't tend to like get a big praise band. I'm kind of more of a chamber musician, kind of world music, folk ensemble stuff myself. So, a best case scenario, we're working with people that have a good sense of rhythm, right? Or we're listening together. Could be a compromise if necessary. Does anybody else want to weigh in on this super tricky one here?
I mean, who has that kind of tech in their churches? We don't. Maybe someday.
Yes.
Just I'm not against click tracks by any means, but there's you're much more limited in dealing with humans. You have the flexibility. Let's do one reverse. Oh, we can't. The click tracks, whatever it may be, we're going on with that. So you have collaboration. You collaborate with one more thing that is inflexible as opposed to other people that are flexible.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
It also actually takes skill to follow a steady beat that you're listening to, because we often with musicians will slowly speed up or slow down over time, and it can actually be more of a hindrance because you're following the speed up, and then, oh yeah, I'm off, I gotta, go back and listen to the click track to follow it, almost be, more detrimental than anything.
Yeah, I mean, that is the point. I'd rather have people looking at me if I'm at the keyboard or I'm standing up there, right? Like if we're tracking one another, if Corey over here all of a sudden is out in left field, I can try to get everybody's attention. We can try to kind of reel it in together, but that's about kind of what's happening in this space, right? We're all hopefully listening to one another.
Rhonda, having worked with lots of click tracks in my life, lots of click tracks, I do want to say what's going on. Are we using this to lead worship, or is this for performance? Sometimes I think that our worship services are beginning to resemble entertainment stage shows, and if that's happening, then I wouldn't be in favor of a click track. But if it's somehow to enhance the worship.
So if you didn't hear that, John said, what's the difference between a performance and enhancing worship? And he's wondering if the click track is going one way or the other. Okay, thank you so much. Oh, one more question?
I was just going to ask, in working with vocalists and transposed instruments, what is a good range or good keys to follow? Because I noticed with Amazing Grace, it was a little harder to sing, but it might have been a good key for the clarinet.
Leah just took that key for Amazing Grace out of her head. It was the wrong key. So you know the basic treble clef staff. If you stay a little bit under that and not much too over that, you're going to be within the range of most instruments. All right, so the clarinet can go down lower than the treble clef by quite a bit and can go higher, but if you stay within that range, the basic range, middle C to C6, I think it is, you're going to be pretty successful. And for bass instruments, the same thing would go for the bass clef. Not too far below the bass clef, not too far above. That's you know, professionals can go way beyond that, but if you're dealing with amateur musicians, if you stay within that, it should be okay. Does that make sense? You can actually go online and find the practical range for all instruments. But this happens to me quite frequently when somebody gives me a flute part to play, and it's like, yeah, but flutes go way high, and I'm a clarinet player, or something like that. Yeah, that was a good question.
Well, thank you all for coming. You're welcome to come up and chat with us, although we'll be getting ready for our next thing. Thank you.